Monday, and Steve was in a foul mood. Sure, he hadn't expected to get an A or B in the darn thing, but an F? Well, man, what happened? 20 questions, and the only one he'd gotten right was the one at the end, asking if he enjoyed the quiz. He did, because it meant he wouldn't have any homework that night. He stared grimly at the piece of paper clutched in his hand before angrily crinkling it into a ball. Later that day, when Steve got home, he tore up his quiz to use as spitballs. And even later that day, Steve was visited by a polygon. After some colorful language and screaming, Steve finally calmed down enough to find out what the triangular other wanted. Much to his annoyance, he found that Bill thought it would be hilarious to no end to torment him about his awful test grade, and maybe help him, just a little bit, because that's what Bill did. So when he found himself by a creek side, watching a fox get eaten alive by a swarm of mosquitoes with a concerned hedgehog nearby, he was not surprised. So, kid, Bill started. Steve cut him off. Yeah, fable. It's some short story with a lesson in mind, also known as a moral. Now tell me something I don't know, snapped Steve. Said Bill as he tapped his non-existent chin. Maybe you should know that I don't like being interrupted. He flicked his cane at Steve's face. The swarm of mosquitoes suddenly rose away from the fox and set off in pursuit of Steve, who had long since run off screaming. So, kid, what's the theme of the story? That I shouldn't interrupt you. Yeah, that and that good deeds are not always helpful, because if the hedgehog drove off those mosquitoes, one would come and eat the fox, Steve yelped. This also applies to you. Never help me academically again. Sure. Next, Bill responded cheerfully. Hey, Ghost Bill. Yep. I thought you could be more creative. Hey, being creative isn't always great. Remember the notepad? Besides, I think green is a creative color. Please don't bring that up, mumbled Steve. Cross yowling brought his attention back to reality as he observed a brawny cowboyish figure arguing with a mountain lion. Peevish as a bee, that one, mused Steve, partly to himself. What was that? Asked Bill. A hyperbole. Thwack. Wrong. A hyperbole is an exaggeration not meant to be taken literally. For example, he used its shadow to shape, as it was quite sharp enough. Direct example from the story, so it's good, right? Fine, whatever. So was my first example a metaphor? Steve ducked another blow. A metaphor is a comparison between two things without using like or as. Then it was a simile. Right. A simile is a comparison between two things using like or as. Can we go now? Not yet. You still need to tell me what kind of story this is, Bill said. It's a tall tale, because it talks about lots of fake happenings as if they were real, like when Pecos Bill hired a rattlesnake to be his riding whip. That wouldn't happen in real life, so it's a tall tale. Man, is it just me or is it really hot right now? Bill noted, not seeming uncomfortable in the slightest, however. Steve stood off to the side, panting and flailing his arms. Whoops, looks like this is Phaethon's story. Guess I took a wrong turn. I was aiming for maybe the climax of I Hunt Killers. Whatever, we can get a good learning experience out of this one, though. Steve rolled his eyes as best as he could, fanning his face with his hands. You've read this one, right? Yeah. It's a myth, so basically it, along with the rest of them, describe how certain aspects of Earth were formed, like the polar ice caps and volcanoes. Phaethon burns up the entire Earth because he was too arrogant to accept that sometimes people are better than you. It's the kind of story that makes everyone feel warm and cozy inside. Yeah, so Phaethon's pretty important, right? He's the main character. Why wouldn't he be? I mean, it was his fault that so many people spontaneously combusted and froze to death. His fault that the polar ice caps were formed, and why there were volcanoes. Steve trailed off and looked thoughtful. Wait, so if he created volcanoes, then technically it was his fault that so many people died in the explosion of the Pompeii volcano. Man, if that kid hadn't been born, things would have been so much more different. Although, I kind of would miss seeing a nice volcanic eruption once in a while. Right, kid. Now, I've got to go soon, so quick review. Definition of a legend. A legend is a story based off of truth, just stretched. It often shows the qualities of the culture from which it came. It's usually passed around orally. For example, the legend of Sleepy Hollow. Bingo! Folktale? It's a story composed orally that's passed down generation after generation orally as well, like the people could fly. You got it, kiddo. Anyhow, catch you later, scrub. I got some students in Plum Grove Junior High I need to pester. In a flash of light, Bill was gone. And that was how Modern Kid ended up all alone in ancient Greece.